And we are live with Adrian M. Gibson, the author of Mushroom Blues, here at Book and a Beverage. Welcome, Adrian. How are you doing today? And tell us where you're from, because I still don't believe it when you told us.
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. I really appreciate it. I am Canadian, born and raised, but I now live in Quito, Ecuador.
How
Okay.
did you get from
I mean, it's a very
Canada?
long, it's a very long story. It's
Yeah,
basically like after I graduated from university in Vancouver, I lived in Berlin for 3.5 years. And
how'd you
while I
do?
was on vacation in Barcelona, I met my now wife. Uh, we did long distance between Barcelona and Berlin for a while, and then she finished her masters and said I have to go back to Ecuador where she was born, and I was a bit tired of Europe, so I said screw it, I'm gonna go with you, and that's how I ended up in Ecuador.
Awesome.
Nice. There's always a woman involved. All these big things. There's
Oh
always a
yeah,
woman involved.
I've like lived I lived in Berlin because of love, and I came to Ecuador because of love as well. So
And
Nice.
you never had any thought of going back to Canada?
no, I mean I go back and visit, and every time I go back, I'm like, wow,
It's
houses are
cold.
way more expensive,
It's what?
and
Yeah,
life is a lot more difficult for everybody that I know.
it's pretty nice down there, is it?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like it rains. It has its dry season. It has its wet season. But I'm right on the equator, so it's pretty much. I mean, you guys are American, so I can't remember Fahrenheit, but around like 25 Celsius is more or less the average.
It's like freaking 83 degrees.
A little
So
less than 80, but yeah,
yeah, but it's nice,
that's
and
nice. And
it's
that's
nice temperature all year round.
that's year round, so you really don't need an AC or a heater.
No, no, and most of the houses here are built with concrete, so they're pretty sort of like temperature
Yeah.
resistant. They manage the temperature much better than houses in North America.
Is it quite a bit different? I know we're not talking about your book yet. Sorry.
It's okay.
Is it quite a bit different living in a place like that? And I'm frozen, but whatever. Than going from the U.S. to Western Europe or Canada to Western Europe isn't that big of a deal.
No.
Um, but going somewhere like that, I would think would be a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, going to Germany, obviously there's like the language barrier, but like culturally, there are a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of crossover when it comes to Western Europe and North America. Coming to Ecuador, like, Ecuador actually has a lot of influence from the States. It even uses the US dollar because
Yeah.
the United States bailed them out back in the late 90s
Huh.
when the country essentially just like went completely bankrupt and its currency devalued. And so now we use the US dollar, and there's a lot of US influence, but obviously there's like a ton of, you know, influence from the indigenous population, then like the Spanish, obviously the language, like I had to learn Spanish from zero, and now I'm fluent. So it's like a lot of stuff that I had to kind of acclimatize myself to, but at the same time, like I'm used to it now. I love the food, I love the people, I love the country.
So what do you do for work?
I am a stay-at-home dad, and then on the side I write and podcast.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, where did the story for Mushroom Blues come up? I can't imagine you're a mushroom aficionado or anything like that based on what's behind you.
I'm going to show this. This is my surprise. This is
Oh,
the first
yes.
time it's ever going to be shown on air.
Woohoo.
Um, I grew mushrooms on a copy of my book.
Nice. I saw
Uh,
that. And you've tried one already.
yeah, yeah, yeah. This one, I took a bite out of that one right there.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how was it?
So it was good. Yeah, it's kind of like a mild, fresh flavor. A little bit of like a briny kick to it at the end. A little bit of an aftertaste, but yeah. The I promise anyone who buys a copy of Mushroom Blues, there will not be mushrooms growing on it.
Growing
So
out of it.
don't you worry.
So what did you do? Just bury your book or something for a while?
No, no, no. This was hi John from one of mushroom aficionado to another. Um, so I basically had to sterilize this just in boiling water, which obviously like putting a book in boiling water for any
Reason?
reader or writer is like that is just blasphemy. You know what I mean? But I had to do it in order to basically sterilize the pages, and then I just like flipped open the pages and sprinkled basically they're like little
Spores.
condensed balls of spores.
Yeah.
Just sprinkled that in there, and then stuff it into a vacuum sealed bag for 3 or 4 weeks, and then after that, put it into a fruiting chamber.
Because when you hold it up from the front there, where the mushrooms are coming out the top,
Yeah.
it looks like all the pages are kind of fused together. It doesn't.
Yeah,
look like
that's
pages.
just like a pure wall of mycelium. Is that?
Oh, right, I
there.
see.
So,
Nice.
Andrew, I will. If this survives, I'll bring it to Worldcon for you, buddy.
You might have a problem with customs there.
Oh yeah, they'll be like, "Well, what is this like disease-ridden thing that you're bringing into our plane?" But yeah, so yeah,
So
Mike, I am definitely a fan of mushrooms. It's something that I've been obsessed with for a really long time, basically since my childhood in British Columbia. Just finding mushrooms, like stumbling across them in the forest and breaking them apart and like seeing like what are these weird things, like these gills and all these like weird slimy caps and stuff like that.
Did you eat them?
Yeah, I used to eat them as a kid. Like I didn't just like eat random ones out of the forest, because obviously that's, if fairy tales teach you anything, it's don't eat anything out of a forest without consulting a professional first.
you can do that once.
Once, yeah, but one time could lead you down a bad path.
Yeah.
So it's not even worth it. No, but like I loved mushrooms when I was a kid. Like, you know, obviously button mushrooms and portobellos and the ones that you usually find at a grocery store. But then there are certain types that grow in British Columbia that are really weird looking but very delicious and totally edible. Like morels, which look like weird alien brains. Yeah, just I've been obsessed for most of my life.
So what's the book about, and how does it connect to mushrooms at all?
So the book is a fungal punk, which is sort of like a subgenre that I came up with, just for fun and everything, but like also because it, you know, I wanna show people how punk fungi can be. But mainly it's a police procedural murder mystery, so it's very much rooted in these genres that a lot of people are familiar with, whether it's from TV, books, movies, that kind of thing. I kind of describe it as like a True Detective meets Jeff Vandermeer, if that gives people a good sense of what the book is like. In terms of, there is a murder mystery that kind of kicks off the book. There's a sort of like curmudgeonly detective, Henrietta Hoffman, who's the main character in the POV of this book.
I like it already.
She finds a dead body on a beach in the city of Neokanoko, and she has to go across the city investigating the murder, figuring out what happened to this kid, why did they wash up there, and along the way she has to team up with Koji Nameko, who is one of many fungal people. This is actually him right here. I illustrated his portrait. So Koji is a fungal person. He's Hoponese, which is this fictional race that I created in this secondary world. And it is a race of people who long time ago essentially symbiotically merged with mushrooms. They just,
as you do,
kind of, yeah, as you do.
Right.
They're just like an isolated population of humans that ended up on an island that was very rich in fungi and branched off into this sort of fungal sort of group of human beings. So they have fungal heads. Their bodies are infused with mycelium. They release spores. Their architecture and engineering is made of mycelium and mold and fungi. Much of their city is made out of fungi. And this is very bad news for Henrietta, because she doesn't want to be there. She's mycophobic and she hates mushrooms. And now she has to investigate this murder with a fungal person in this fungal city that she's basically been exiled to.
You know what that reminds me of? Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Because the guy hates tunes. He doesn't want anything to do, but he has to go into Toontown all the time.
Yeah, but it's a perfect foil for the story to introduce things that would otherwise be too strange or too difficult to explain to the reader, or in the case of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, the viewer. It's kind of like this aversion is a tool through which I was able to explore a lot of this world, just based on the fact that Henrietta finds it disgusting. She finds it off-putting. She doesn't want to interact with it, but it kind of forces her into being a more involved player in the sort of mechanics and sociopolitics of this city.
It also provides a really nice, as you say, mechanism for character growth.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
I mean,
So you had me when you said that she's a curmudgeon. I was like, yes, I like this character.
She's a bit racist too, but that's more at the beginning.
Well,
You know, so you take it, you take one with the, you take a positive with the negative.
again,
mushroom people.
Yes, she's you know, her society, the Caprinians, which are one nation of human beings on this planet, they're basically propagandized into believing that these fungal people are lesser than, that they basically don't deserve. Hi, Brian. I can't eat the book itself. I can eat the mushrooms.
So in this world that you've created, do mushrooms exist as food? Like, can the humans in their place get a mushroom pizza?
Yeah. So the like
And the
people
mushroom
in
people don't have a
Caprinia could get.
problem with this?
I mean that's something that's explored in the book, is sort of like this idea of cannibalism and mushroom people eating mushrooms.
Oh, they do.
Is something that comes up. So the mushroom people have like a very sort of animistic religion, and their views on the universe and the world is that everything is interconnected and everything is cyclical. And so for them, it's okay to eat mushrooms, and they wouldn't mind a human being eating mushrooms on a plate. I mean, I'm sure they would mind like a human being eating a mushroom person, because that person
Right,
is
right. Sentience. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, that's definitely something. Like, mushrooms exist all over this planet. It's just this particular archipelago. Mushrooms just became a more dominant form of life amongst, you know, the flora and the fauna.
So I have a question for you, Adrian,
Sure.
because last month Spiff Box just started,
Mm-hmm.
and today they just crowned the winner of Spacebow.
Yeah.
So your book, can you
Right.
enter it in one, both? Where would it fit?
Oh, I'm 100% going to enter in both. Because it kind of traverses genres. Genre
Yeah.
blending is something that I just kind of like stumbled into because it's something I love to read and watch, but it just happened to be something that worked for me as a writer as well.
Yeah.
So Mushroom Blues, it's like there are definitely elements of it that are urban fantasy. You know, there is a race of fungal people in it, and
Yeah.
they have sort of not telecommunication per se, but more like empathic communication, where they can read each other's emotions, they can share memories and things like that with each other, all through this interconnected mycelial network. But on this, at the same time, it's like the technology is akin to 1990s on Earth, more or less, with like cassette tapes and the cars and guns and that kind of thing. And there are definitely elements that kind of lean more towards sci-fi. You know, there's a lot of inspiration from Blade Runner and cyberpunk books. So it kind of traverses a lot of that. And I've already entered it into Spiffbo. It ended up in the 300 contestants.
Which group are you in?
I'm with Fantasy Book Critic.
Fantasy. Okay.
And I'm definitely going to be entering it into SPSFC as well.
So you said the magic word. You said it's based in the 90s with cassette tapes. You have a curmudgeon. I have to read this book.
There's actually, if you want, there's an official soundtrack that two of my friends in Sweden made. But they did a limited run of like physical cassette tapes that you can buy through their Bandcamp. So it's like you can get the soundtrack digitally, but then you can also get the cassette tape, which we both designed together. So it's called Mushroom Blues is the album, but Spore is the duo. So cassette tapes for me was like really cool to be able to have that sort of meta interaction where there's the cassette tapes in the book where Henrietta inherits a cassette collection from her dad. And it's called Pilz rock is like the genre that she loves to listen to, which is based on krautrock, which is a German rock genre from like the 60s, 70s, 80s. And that's kind of like her safe place. Like music is a safe place for her. Where it's like if she's feeling overwhelmed, she tosses one of these cassettes in the tape deck in her car and listens to this music that connects her to her dad. And then I also was able to throw references into the names of the songs and the artists, like author friends of mine and people I admire.
Yep.
So it's a fair question, I think, to ask if mushrooms had anything to do with how you came up with this whole thing.
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's like the lifelong journey that I've had with mushrooms, both on a sort of biological level, just my fascination with them as like organisms, but then culinarily, the way that they've been incorporated into the food that I cook and, recipes that I found from other countries and food that I love, whether it's like Vietnamese food or Chinese food or Japanese food or Italian food. There's so many different varieties of mushrooms, and the ways in which they're incorporated into cuisine just fascinates me. But then at the same time, when I was in university, I started exploring psychedelics, and that was kind of like opening up a whole other spectrum of what mushrooms can do and how they can. Hey, Chris. Oh, thank you, buddy. And what they can do in terms of the ways in which they interact with human consciousness and the doors that they're able to open to different ways of thinking and different ways of approaching reality through the use of sort of like out-of-body experiences and sort of psychedelic twisting of what we perceive as normal life.
I know there's a lot of studies now on psychedelics in relation to like PTSD and things like that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, psychedelics, there are a lot of uses for it in therapies, whether it's, like MDMA is a big one for how it's specifically applied to people with PTSD, mostly veterans, people who come back from war. Mushrooms and ayahuasca have been used in therapeutical settings in order to help people deal with trauma. So it's not just PTSD related to war. It could be PTSD related to sexual assault or to abuse, whether it's, from somebody outside your family or whether it's like parental abuse or any kind of thing. So a lot of different applications, but it's crazy to me and kind of magical the ways in which mushrooms and other psychedelics are able to unlock parts of the mind that the conscious brain tends to suppress. And so it's kind of like a way of tapping into your subconscious and exploring the things that make you who you are, but at the same time giving you the ability and the sort of mental and emotional capacity to approach those things from the perspective of healing as opposed to fear or anything like that.
And were you thinking a lot about that when you were writing the book, or were you just concentrating more on the story? I mean, does any of that have any play with this particular species of folks?
Yeah, I mean, Henrietta's journey is very much inspired by my own psychedelic experiences. And so it's like, she's got her trauma, she's got her baggage. And this journey that she goes on over the course of this book is sort of like the beginning for her to unlock her repressed traumas. And, this is book one in a series. So it's kind of like the first step towards her awakening and allowing her to sort of deal with the difficulties of what she's gone through, the difficulties of what she's done, what she's culpable of, and at the same time kind of taking a step towards healing.
So a little bit of Alice goes through the looking glass as well.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, like I love the ways in which, like Lewis Carroll used sort of, like Wonderland as this way to explore. And it's kind of interesting because like Lewis Carroll never did psychedelics. He basically based all of it on clinical research that he'd read and basically like accounts of people going through You got to go deep, Brian. You got to look into your subconscious.
So,
Basically, like Lewis Carroll was using accounts of other people's experiences in order to kind of imagine what this altered state could be like. And Wonderland is essentially like Alice going through a deeply psychedelic experience and essentially coming back a changed person. And psychedelics can do that for a lot of people. Whether, sometimes it's negative, sometimes, most of the time, it's positive. But when you go through those kinds of experiences, people tend to have a very monumental shift in how they perceive the world.
is this your first book?
Yep. This isn't the first one I've written, but it's the first one I've published. So I'd written one before this, and I'm going to rework that into my next novel. And then Mushroom Blues is the first one that I officially published. Second book, but first one published.
So your first book that's unpublished, that's not in the Mushroom Blues universe, or is it?
It is, yeah. So it's called the
It is?
Fungalverse, the shared universe that I created.
Nice.
Mike is getting such a kick out of this. I love it.
I do like that. That's thing.
Yeah, but
Ro is probably laughing too, but he keeps freezing, so we don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's really
okay.
fucking driving me nuts.
Yeah, I believe he has believe in the background. I believe that he's laughing. So the book that I wrote before this is also set in the Fungalverse, but 30 years after the events of the Hoffman Report, which is the series that Mushroom Blues kicks off. So there are characters that come back. There are sort of like interconnected familial relationships. There are events in Mushroom Blues and the Hoffman Report that will affect things that happen in this next series. So what I'm planning to do is basically like, I've released Mushroom Blues, gonna finish and release the next one, which starts off a trilogy, and then jump back and forth between those two and kind of keep building from there.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about this. I know we talked about this before the camera went on, but all the drawings behind you is art that you did because you used to be, or you still are, a tattoo artist.
Yep.
So that's gonna kind of help, especially when you're dealing with something that this kind of out of the ordinary, to be able to create for yourself what these things look like and have that an actual picture there while you're developing a story.
Yeah, 100%. This illustration, like I'm such a visually oriented person that a lot of the Fungalverse and a lot of this world and the characters started out as sort of like visual concepts in my head. And then when I started down the path of creating this world, I was both world building and illustrating and researching all in conjunction as a way to sort of like build my concept of what this world is. So it's like I have illustrations of architecture just so I could imagine like what fungal architecture looks like. I have the fungal people, just sort of like sketches of Neo-Kanoko and different aspects of their religion and food and all this kind of stuff. And so I spent a lot of time, way too much time. But now that I look back on it in hindsight, it's like it was years, like 2.5 years of sort of like illustrating and world building before I realized like that I hadn't really written that much. And so I was like, well, shit, I haven't done too much on the story front. And the idea that I'd come up with, like the story idea that I'd come up with for it, was more of like a travelogue with like a nameless protagonist. And it was kind of a way for people to enter into this world and see different ways of living and creating and engineering and all this kind of stuff. Felt a little bit, bland. It felt a little bit preachy. And so it was after that I like scrapped that story, and because I hadn't even written that much in it anyways. And then started to pull in genres that I really love, like cyberpunk and murder mysteries and police procedurals, and pulling on authors that I really admire, like Jeff Vandermeer's a huge influence, Philip K. Dick, China Mieville, and just started pulling in all these influences and actually figuring out like how can I write a story in this world, the world that I've kept, because that was really cool, and basically use that as a jumping off point to be like, okay, I've got this amazing world. What kind of stories can I mess around with in this playground. And obviously it's like I had to look inside myself and think like, what are the stories that I really love to consume? And it felt so much more natural for me to say like, I'm going to set a murder mystery in this world. You know, I don't have to be preachy about it because all of the stuff that I've created will seep through the fabric of the story, and people will be able to experience certain things about mushrooms or engineering or architecture or food or religion or what have you, sort of like have that diffusing through the world, but have the main propellant of the story be a genre that people are familiar with, like the type of story that people are actually engaged in, as opposed to like, I'm just going to have someone wander around this place. And that's not very interesting. Instead, it's like, okay, here's this mystery, this murder mystery that the protagonist and the reader have to solve. That's the kind of thing that really thrusts them into the nitty gritty of this world. And everything else just kind of like is absorbed through osmosis.
Any chance this becomes a graphic novel?
I would love to draw a graphic novel at some point. I wouldn't do one specifically of Mushroom Blues. My dream is that it would become an anime adaptation. That would be amazing. Because I think anime is like the perfect medium to adapt something like this. But, you know, Fungalverse stuff, I might do like an original comic book or graphic novel down the line.
I mean, it looks like you've got plenty of stuff to get going.
Yeah.
So I have an idea for you.
Go ahead. What?
Do your travel log, if you do it like if it's short and it has drawings, and use it as a reader magnet. And they can just jump right into the world, and they can see the architecture for themselves, and you can have short descriptions, and that way it's not wasted writing. You should try that maybe.
Yeah, but I mean the Fungalverse has changed quite a lot since those days, and I am writing a reader magnet right now, which is just like a novella.
Yeah.
And basically, I describe it as like, you know, a down and out ex sushi chef is blackmailed into assassinating a political figure. So that's kind of like my my reader magnet, and fits much more. It's like it's right in between Mushroom Blues and the sequel that I'm gonna hopefully release next year.
Was there a point in the last couple of years where your wife just kind of looked at you and gave you the "what the hell are you doing" look?
No, because it's, you know, what the hell have I been doing is basically what I've been doing since we've known each other. So
okay, all right.
It's pretty much normal for her. Yeah. It wasn't like out of the ordinary that I told her like I'm gonna grow mushrooms from a copy of my book, and she's like, cool, you know, and like helped me set up like a camera so that I could capture pictures to make a time lapse and all this different kind of stuff. Like she was fully on board for it.
Now you said you have a YouTube channel as well.
So it's not my YouTube channel per se. So I have my own podcast, which is SFF Addicts.
Is what?
Which SFF Addicts, which I co-host with MJ Kuhn. She's the author of Among Thieves, which is right there. So yeah, we chat with authors. We do writing master classes, new episodes every Tuesday. But the YouTube channel that those episodes go out on is FanFi Addict, which is part of a blog called FanFi Addict. So it's kind of like SFF Addicts is sort of like under that umbrella.
Nice. So you're keeping yourself busy. You're how old are your kids?
My oldest is coming up on 4, and then my other is about 1.5 years. So
so you're as a stay-at-home dad, then you put your hands full. They're at that age where they're just moving around all the time now.
Oh yeah, and falling all the time, constantly. It's just like faces covered in bruises and whatnot. But yeah, I've just my whole life, like my whole adult life especially, like I've been very driven creatively, and being a stay-at-home dad kind of made me realize like I can't have my whole identity. Hi, Bo. Oh, I gotta show this to Bo just because he's here. There it is. Just give those mushrooms a little jiggle. So it made me realize that yes, like being a parent is very fulfilling, and there is a lot involved in.
Yeah, you're probably right, Bo.
It's all good, man. Lesson for next time. Um, Parenting is very fulfilling, but there also needs to be a balance between an adult's identity between being an individual and being a parent. And so a lot of my life since my boys have been born has been spent trying to figure out like how can I express myself creatively and how can I do the things that I want to achieve, all while being a present father and taking care of them at home and fulfilling their needs, but it's like being in an airplane and having to put your own mask on first. It's like there are needs that need to be met. Obviously, it's like this child needs to eat and drink and have their diaper changed and sleep and all this different kind of stuff. But on a broader level, the adult, the parent also needs to sort of like sustain themselves and their needs in order to be a happier version of themselves and thus a happier and more engaged parent for their kids. Too far. Brian suggested it earlier. I can take a little nibble on camera. If that's too far, Bo.
Never seen anybody eat their book before, but that's interesting.
I'm eating my own words.
There you go. A little inkiness to it.
Just a little spice. Yeah.
Shoot. Mike, I think this would be a good time for what would your character do? Because I think Adrian's character is probably set up for your particular brand of silliness.
Okay, well, I'm going to do a silly question.
I was going to ask you.
Okay.
Number 7, which is a shame because number 1 is if you were to write a cookbook inspired by your book, but we didn't get that one. We got what Olympic sport would you want your main character to compete in? Or pick a character if it's not Henrietta.
Ooh, okay. Henrietta would definitely she would definitely be a curler. This is a throwback to my Canadian roots. She would do curling for sure.
She likes to drink beer, does she?
She's actually an ex-alcoholic, so she would probably be like an ex-curler. But she just has like the attitude and the sort of like bravado that I feel like I'm okay, bud. Don't worry, bud. She just kind of has like the attitude that I feel would fit very well in curling, like, especially, I can't remember like the positions, but there's that person who's like, who sort of like throws I don't know any like of the terminology.
Stone.
She throws the stone and then she's the one who's like screaming the whole time. She would be the person who's screaming the whole time.
So
at
she's
the people who are like kind of like brushing the ice, she'd be screaming at them. That would be the sport that she plays.
And I really hope that that's what they call the person who throws the stone is the Karen, because I mean that perfectly describes it. So I don't know if you happened to see our show last night.
No,
but
I didn't.
we had GJ Terrell on here, and he was throwing down saying the secret scribes would take out the break-ins in a game of Fantasy Feud. So,
damn. Can Louis Anderson be the host of it? I would love that.
No, much worse. It's going to be Ro and I are the hosts.
Oh, you're the host.
So I have the body of Louis Anderson. So Ro just has to get Ro just has to develop a sense of humor.
Oh my god,
and we're there.
I love this. Oh man, it's on. I love that. Like, this is what's so fun about the SFF community is that, yeah, like the break-ins kind of, for anyone who doesn't know, it's just like a group of debut authors. We have a Discord and we just help each other out, whether it's like publishing related stuff, just kind of like helping boost each other, helping each other out sort of like emotionally, because releasing a book is just a stressful experience. But the break-ins is our particular debut author group. And then there's just like some fun stuff that went around that was like, there should be a rival group, it's kind of like Gangs of New York, or like something like that, but with like debut authors. So there's another debut author group that started out, which I really appreciate. But we already had some fun rivalry banter going on Twitter, which is a great time.
And I
Hey,
have to say, if you watched our show, you know who the break-ins are because you're like the 8th, 9th, 10th person from the group that we've interviewed. So
Yeah.
you got to know by now.
We're popular apparently. No.
Now, living where you do down in Ecuador,
Mm-hmm.
probably not a lot of, and I might be wrong about this, maybe there are probably not a lot of places to sell English language books, like not a lot of Comic Cons. So you really are kind of dependent upon figuring out the marketing angle of selling online.
Mm-hmm.
All right, yeah, teach us.
Yeah, because most of the bookstores in Ecuador are Spanish language. There are chains, like there's one that's called Librimundi. There's another one called Mr. Books. Bigger places. There are some indie bookstores as well, which have a bigger selection of English language books, but they tend to be used. So I have taken my book to them, which is great. But the bigger bookstores, it's like usually they're only ordering stuff from, big 5 publishers.
Sure.
Like I have author friends who it's like I've seen their books. Like I found Richard Swan's book in Quito, so I just like took a picture and sent him a message. I was like, "You're all the way in Ecuador, buddy," which is really cool. But obviously, for a self-published author, there has to be a little more thought going into distribution channels and things like that. So it's obviously like Amazon is the big one. That is the primary funnel through which most indie books are going through, especially because it allows me to sell my book in North America, but also England and Western Europe and Australia and different places like that, Japan. So that has been really beneficial, that I can tell friends of mine all over the world. Like I have friends in Australia, I have friends in Canada, the States, or England, or France, or Germany, and just be like, hey, you've got Amazon in your country, you can get my book through there. But at the same time, I've also been able to tap into sort of like alternative markets. So it's like the founder of the Bald&Balding is a good friend of mine, so I was able to talk with him and set up selling signed hardcovers through the Bald&Balding over in the UK. Indie stores in North America especially, I have my paperback and my hardcover distributing through Ingram Spark. And so it's like once you have sort of like that open channel, all you have to do is be like, here are my ISBN codes, and you can order this book. You can order it to your indie bookstore. People can order it through the Barnes & Noble website. Obviously, you can't actually go to a Barnes & Noble and pick it up. But actually, Bo, who's here right now, he helped set me up with a consignment buyer for Indigo chapters in Canada. So shout out to Juliana Caro, who helped basically get my book into the system so that I could be ordered into physical stores. And Indigo chapters is like the Barnes & Noble of Canada. But for me, it's really cool to be like, she sent me pictures of the book on shelves in a physical store in Canada, which is amazing. So it's like a lot of different distribution options for self-published authors. A lot of it, unfortunately, is like Amazon aside. A lot of it is who you know.
Right.
But that's kind of how this community works, is getting to know different people, developing a rapport and a relationship with them, and hopefully, being able to help them out, and in return, they can help you out when the time is needed.
Do you have any plans to get your book translated into Spanish?
I mean, I would hope so. I've already got an Italian translation deal. Yeah. So like William said, like not every country has Amazon, but yeah, like his Turkish friend, if you have basically like wide distribution for your book through Amazon or through Ingram Spark or other companies, someone can go to a bookstore and they can just have your book ordered in. So that is another option, which is really, really beneficial for authors out there. But yeah, on the translation front, like I've got an Italian translation coming. I can't announce who it's with, but hopefully that'll be coming out in the first half of 2025, which is really cool. That just kind of like surprised me because it was 4 days after I released the book that they reached out.
Wow.
And then hopefully that just starts like a chain reaction of being able to get the book translated into other languages. Like Spanish obviously would be a big one for me because I know a lot of Spanish speakers, and for them to be able to, you know, also hopefully stock the book here in Ecuador and other Spanish speaking countries. French would be amazing, German. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, having one translation already kind of sets a precedent that I can hopefully seek more potential translation deals going forward.
Nice.
And you're self-published, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. So it's under the Kanoko Books Co., but that's just like a fictional book company based in Neo Kanoko. So it's like I have the logo on the side to make it look a little bit more official. But someone someone in like a Goodreads review is like, I've never seen this publisher before, and I was like, it's not a real publisher.
It's me.
Yeah.
Awesome. Mike, roll a dice.
Okie dokie. 16.
You know, he's just throwing shit on the counter there. He really doesn't have any dice or anything.
It's
He's
just
making it
nails.
all up as he goes.
He's got it.
Yeah, I'm a nerd. Don't doubt that.
Like the wall of weapons and stuff didn't key us in on
Didn't
that.
give that away. Yeah.
And
Or
the
the-
mannequin behind me.
Or
Yeah.
the mannequin either. Exactly.
Details. Okay. What would be the biggest obstacle to making your book into a silent movie?
Ooh.
I don't know. I think yours would be all right.
Yeah, mine would be pretty all right. Obviously, there's like with subtitles, you know, if it was like silent movie with subtitles, like it would be fine. I don't think there'd be any issues. Obviously, there's like translation stuff in the book. Like there's a language that I created for the Japanese people. But
You created a language?
Yeah.
Easy there,
Basi-
Paul.
It's not as complex as like Elvish or Dwarvish or any of that, but yeah, I think it would be fine because most of it's like I do the sort of translation through, it's all English. Like there are select words that will be used, but most of it is through context, and I think it would be fine. Obviously, it's like, you know, you'd miss out on the awesome soundtrack that Spora made, but I think it could work great. Yeah, there's a lot of color that would be missing if it's a black and white silent movie, though. Yeah, there's like a lot of vibrancy to the mushrooms and the mold and stuff. But that's okay.
So they're not just brown and slimy. They're
they're like, look at my cover, man. It's like as bright as this. You know, there's bright blues and yellows and greens and oranges and reds, like fungi are, you know, or bioluminescent. There's glowing mushrooms. It's all over the place.
Okay. Oh, so when you said your second book, well, the first book you wrote, but it's going to come out when?
Probably early next year.
Okay, we're writing this down in stone.
Look at that. Is that a panther cap?
Dude, I don't know what it is. It was a yellow fucking mushroom I saw somewhere, and I took a picture of it. I said, hey, that looks cool. I don't know what it is, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a panther cap. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why it's called panther cap. It's like,
If I had eaten it, what would have happened?
that one I don't think anything would happen. That one's not particularly poisonous. Amanita muscaria, the one that Daniel Clauser's talking about, that's the one that the Super Mario mushrooms are based on. That's like the bright red one. It looks the same as the one that you showed, but the Amanita muscaria is like bright red, sort of like skin on the cap, whereas the jaguar one or the panther cap, sorry, is like more yellowish brown.
Glad to know that's the thing.
But Amanita muscaria is like more on the psychedelic end of things. I had some of that were exactly the same color. Wow.
So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Daniel has read your book already. I don't know that to be true, but I'm going to guess
You,
it.
Daniel? He's a big mushroom fan. I love this.
Who knew?
Yeah. Amanita pantarina. Yeah.
Who knew we had mushroom lovers that watched all the time?
Yeah,
That's the thing. Like after releasing this book, I realized there are so many people who are either like super into mushrooms, which I love, but then also people who are like more on the mycophobic end, like Henrietta, which is perfect because I've had people ask me like in comments on social media or whatever, or just personally, like I find mushrooms disgusting, or like I find them like really weird and uncomfortable. Would I enjoy this book? And I'm like, well, the main character is mycophobic, so you could relate to that and kind of have the same experience of opening up to the beauty of mushrooms at the same time as her.
Oh, well, you have a future sale.
Daniel, I hope you get it, and I hope you enjoy. It is not, just mind you, it is not like 100% mycologically accurate. There are things that I twisted around, especially spores, because I didn't want, like, spores are more like a way for the fungal people to emote in this particular story, as opposed to spores being like a form of reproduction. I didn't want like the humans to go around this world and think like this person is trying to have sex with me by just like dousing me in spores or something like that.
that would be awkward.
Yeah, exactly.
Are they connected through? Because aren't mushrooms, and I might be thinking of something else. Aren't they connected through this vast kind of root network?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's so mycelium is kind of like the brains of the fungal world. They exist primarily underground, or they look like tendrils, little like white filaments, and they're kind of like the fungal version of roots to plants and trees and that kind of thing. So they primarily exist underground and allow for large sort of like fungal bodies to exist over a large area. Like I think in Portland, or not in Portland, in Oregon, there's like a fungal organism that exists beneath a forest that is one of the largest living organisms on Earth, just because it's a giant interconnected mycelial network. And then the fungal people in the book I mentioned earlier, the way that they're able to like empathically communicate with each other, that's sort of based in a mycological network that exists and kind of like permeates the fungal people, but also the city that they live in, the architecture that they've created. So they're all kind of interconnected in this way.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly.
You run the big risk of learning something here, Michael.
I know.
Actually, John pointed something out. There was a test. It wasn't necessarily with mycelium, but it was with slime mold, which slime mold is not actually a proper fungi. It's like related. It's like distantly related. But they formed their own AI network. That's very cool. But there was like an experiment done where they basically mapped out Tokyo, in like sort of like they like created a sort of maze of Tokyo, and they let loose this slime mold to basically see like how the slime mold can navigate this space. And what it ended up doing is almost perfectly mapping out the subway system, the metro system of Tokyo, in which case the people who designed the metro system in Tokyo created the most efficient form of navigating that city, which the slime mold was able to replicate without having any knowledge of what metro systems are, what transportation is, or just anything like that. Like the slime mold just knew how to properly perceive its environment and then navigate that space in the most efficient way possible.
Slime mold just does not get enough love.
No,
You gotta bring some of that up to Washington, D.C. or Boston.
Like any North American city, all North American cities, for the most part, the transportation systems are horrible. So yeah, like living in Berlin after leaving Vancouver, I was like, this is just magic. Like this actually functions and I can actually get everywhere. Whereas Vancouver, it's like 95% buses, and most of the time those buses are late. Mushrooms do seem to fungi predate plants. Yeah. Daniel's my boy, and John too. I love that we got these fungal nerds in here.
We'll see. All right, Mike, what else you got, man?
So I want to ask, are you going to write any books that are not in the fungal verse? Or you are?
Yeah, I'm very much just like overly involved in planning stuff. So I have a whole document, like a Word document with ideas. I just call it story ideas, and I've got all my Fungalverse stuff planned out more or less. Even if it's just like a short like paragraph about like what's going on in this book, how all of the different Fungalverse stuff like fits on a timeline and how it interconnects. And beyond that, I have ideas of like near future sci-fi set in Ecuador. I have an idea for sort of like a short novel, like very, very like deep cyberpunk kind of police procedural series that's set on Earth, but later in the 21st century or early 22nd century. I've got standalone stuff. I got fantasy stuff as well. I got ideas all over the place. Some that are set on Earth and others that are secondary worlds that aren't the Fungalverse.
It's nice to have a couple decades worth of writing set aside and queued up for yourself there.
Yeah, I mean, like, good thing that I'm starting like relatively young. I'm only 32, so it's like, you know, I'll be writing these books into my 50s and 60s. It'll be good.
Can you imagine starting at 32, Mike?
Oh my God!
Wow, you might have 6 books by now.
I was just doing the math and realized that I'd graduated high school before he was born.
Oh, don't do
What
that.
year did you graduate high school?
89.
Okay, yeah. So you got 2 years on me there.
Yeah.
You were born in 91?
Yep.
Was already married for a year in 91.
Bo, you still have time to catch up. Of course you do, man. There you go.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right there, William.
So,
Ideas are dime a dozen.
so Adrian, I have an off-the-wall question for you that is very much self-serving.
Okay.
And Bo, some things are obvious. What would the likelihood be that the good citizens of Quito would riot if there was a food shortage?
Pretty high likelihood. Yeah.
Okay, because
Yeah.
in my book that's coming out, one of the space elevators is in Quito, and that's the first one to fall because the people riot and have explosives, and the whole thing comes tearing down, and then society falls apart on Earth. So yeah, Quito is ground
Dude,
zero.
Mike, the near future books in Ecuador that I was telling you about, they also have a space elevator in Quito.
Nice.
Dude.
Well, I mean, Quito, it's on the equator, so you
Oh, I
know.
was gonna say it must be
No, but it's like if you go around the Earth, it's like the equator basically intersects with like very few countries. It's
Right.
mostly like Ecuador, Brazil, and then you jump over to Africa, and then it's like you go through like Congo and places like that, and then it cuts across into like Indonesia.
I was going to
And so
say
they're
that's
very-
in Indonesia. Yeah.
There are very few places where a space elevator would function, but Ecuador is actually one of the best places because not only is it on the equator, not only is the climate like relatively stable compared to somewhere like Indonesia where they have like typhoon season and stuff like that, but also Ecuador is one of the farthest points away from the center of the Earth.
Yep.
So even though like Mount Everest is technically the tallest mountain on Earth, Chimborazo, which is a volcano in Ecuador, it's maybe about like 3.5 hours south of Quito. That is actually the farthest point away from the center of the Earth, is the top of that volcano. So Ecuador is like so high up that you would actually save in material costs, you would save in energy costs by building a space elevator here.
Nice.
I
So
know
you have the
flat
same line of
earthers
thinking,
who would disagree with you.
Oh, fuck the flat earthers, man. I'm going to build my space elevator. I don't care what you think.
Nice.
Yeah, so we got like a similar line of thinking. I like that, Mike. I can't wait to read your book.
That's the first time I've ever heard someone say they have a similar line of thinking to Mike and then say, I like that. Most people are like running to their doctor's office. See,
Or else they say the doctors just said I have to increase my meds. Yeah.
that's right.
Well,
So-
I did eat a mushroom from my book on camera, so
Hey,
know.
there you go. So my book
Take
will
my
be
sanity.
competing against yours in Space Bow. So
Oh, you are?
yep, but mine will go out early, so don't worry about it.
Oh, shush. John, the Earth is so flat, unlike my mushroom cap. Damn, that's a good dad joke.
No, it's not.
Ooh. So, Ro, help me.
No, I've asked my questions. I've written them down, and I have asked them.
Whoa. You wrote them down?
Well, I'd forgotten them first time. Remember when you rolled the dice? So then I remembered them and wrote them down. And
Okay, well then that means it's time to roll the die. Or would you like to go into the bulb dome and have your character do gladiatorial battle with fantasy elements?
Well, let's see. Let's do the die, and then we'll do that one after.
Okay, 16.
He's an and not or kind of guy.
If you could only use adjectives to describe either the sights or the sounds in your book, which one would you choose and why?
Ooh,
just one.
The sights and sounds. Just one. How many do I get?
You can use adjectives you want, but you can only describe the sights or you can describe the sounds. You cannot do both.
Okay. Can I do the smells?
Ooh, nice. I like it.
Okay. Adjectives for the smells. Let's see. Musty, dank, cloying, I think is probably a very good one for this.
No wonder she doesn't like it.
But also briny because it takes place in a coastal city, so Neoconoco's on the coast.
You ever drink pickle juice?
I have, but it's not like I seek it out. I don't seek out pickle juice.
Why would you?
Okay, I'll do one more. Let's see.
I just thought pickle. I'm sorry.
Okay, one more. Let's see. Decay.
Okay. So 1, 2.
You are painting a vivid word picture with smells there.
Okay, so the premise is this: your character is transported to a magical place called the Bald Dome, because we don't have a great imagination.
Is the Bald Dome open? I'm imagining it like the Sky Dome in Toronto, like where the Toronto Blue Jays play, where it can like open and close.
Well, it's glass. It's very shiny.
Okay, it's glass. Okay.
So you go there. You got nothing that they normally possess. You get one potion, which you don't know what it does, and you get your choice of a weapon. And if you choose the higher class of weapon, you fight a fantasy creature. You choose the lower one, you fight a normal animal. Okay. So I'm going to roll here to get the specifics for you. Okay.
How much is that?
A lot.
You just picked the one you like the most?
So you are in a hidden valley inhabited by reclusive druids. AI. There's no druids here. I really need to look at this. So you're in a valley.
Okay. A hidden valley, like the salad dressing for your mushroom.
And you have a potion, which is number 7 on my list, but you don't get to know what it is.
Okay.
So you get your choice between a regular item or an actual weapon, like medieval type weapon. And if you choose medieval weapon, you're fighting a fantasy creature. If you choose a regular item, which could or could not be useful, then you're fighting just a regular animal. So which do you prefer?
Do I get to choose who's fighting?
No, that comes next after you choose your weapon. I'll tell you what you're fighting.
All right. Let's do the weapon, not the regular item.
Okay. Well, the regular item would have been 20 feet of rope, but you got number 5, which is a halberd.
Okay. I'm down for a halberd. That's a good weapon. Good distance.
So with the rope, you would have had to fight a jaguar, but no, you are fighting a cunning basilisk. Okay. With a gaze that turns victims to stone.
Man, I would have been screwed with that rope against the jaguar. Yes, it's not jaguar. Jaguar.
It's my show.
Not jaguar. There's no freaking wire.
Jaguar.
But anyway, so what happens here in this story?
Okay, so I got my halberd. Who's the character though?
You have to pick your character, and it's the basic rules of your world.
Okay, I'm gonna pick Koji because he's the best.
Ooh,
He's got a halberd.
can they be turned to stone with a basilisk? I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah,
Go on.
that's the thing. Okay, so I've got Koji. He has a halberd. He's gonna go against the basilisk. Okay, so
Sounds
Koji,
like
what he's so Koji's what he's gonna do is he's going to essentially use the halberd to keep the basilisk. He's got a big mushroom cap, so you can see him here. He's got a mushroom
Yeah.
cap, so he's gonna keep the mushroom cap there, so his gaze doesn't ever meet the basilisks.
Hey,
So
Adrian,
that's first of all. What's up?
do me a favor. You might have to move your camera. Can you show the picture of him because your name is covering the
Okay.
image there.
Here's what I'm gonna
People I
do.
think might want to see him.
Because we're on StreamYard, so I can just pull it up and share the screen. Okay. Okay, so here's Koji. This is an older version of Koji though. Can everyone see that?
All
Yeah.
right.
Okay,
All
then.
right. So that's older Koji, but he's 30 years younger than he is here. So basically he's got this big mushroom cap, so he can use that to sort of like angle his head and avoid the stony gaze of the basilisk.
Okay.
He's going to use the halberd to keep distance from it. But what he's going to do is he can release mycelium through his fingers. So what he's going to do is he's going to release the mycelium from his fingers, or at least like one hand, while using the halberd to maintain distance from the basilisk. And he's going to have that mycelium essentially crawl up the basilisk's, body, then to its head. First of all, it's going to cover its eyes with mycelium so that it can't see and it can't turn him into stone. Then it's basically just going to send the mycelium inside of the basilisk through its mouth and suffocate it from the inside out.
Nice.
Nice. That is a plan. So not using the potion then.
I don't know what was the potion.
So the potion, it can be good or bad, and it depends on if you use it to you or your opponent. But in this case, it was a love potion, so it would have made whoever fall madly in love with the other, which would have made it awkward.
But that would have been so awkward because they fall in love, they give each other googly eyes, and then he gets turned into stone anyways.
Right. Exactly.
Shit, man. Okay. Well, yeah, the mycelium. He's gonna choke this basilisk out from the inside out.
And one day when we do this, the author will have their character die, but it has not happened yet.
Who
Why-
wants their
why
character
would
to
you
die?
have a-
though?
Why would you have a potion you don't know what it does?
Because those are the rules. It's my
Yeah.
universe. It's
That-
my
The
makes
arbitrary
sense.
rules of
Went to the
Bald&Balding.
West having a bucket of water in her house.
It could be an invisibility potion. It's a different one every time.
It's the arbitrary rules of the Bald Dome. Don't
Yeah.
question.
Okay.
Don't question too much.
Oh,
Oh my god.
all right, man. You have wasted an hour of your time tonight. And I want to thank you for that.
No, I appreciate everyone watching. I appreciate all the mycophiles out there in the comments.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I
was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I did not know we had that in our audience. We should have done mushrooms earlier.
Right? Who
You guys
knew?
are you gonna take psychedelics on camera?
When we get to 1,000, Rose
I
going to do
think that would. I'm in a job where I can't, but maybe when I retire.
Well, it depends on the drug test they do. Some of them don't test for it. So
I work for the government.
the government is thorough. I assume the US government is thorough.
Oh. Okay, well, Adrian, thank you for this. If you haven't learned enough about mushrooms, there is an entire book you can read and enjoy, and probably learn some things that are accurate and some that probably aren't quite, but they're entertaining.
And when you're finished reading it, you can boil it and put it in the ground and
Yeah,
start your own little herb farm.
exactly. You can have your own little fungal garden on your book.
Nice.
Now you're going to chop those up and throw them on a pizza or something at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I kept them like this so I could show you guys.
They won't stay like that indefinitely.
No. There are new ones that are going to grow, and then the old ones are going to get shriveled up. So I will harvest them at some point, and I can just these are oyster mushrooms, so they're good to fry on the pan with salt and garlic and butter.
So is there a little bit of paper that kind of comes out with those?
No. The
You have to-
paper is
figure at some level.
I don't even think you can like see much of the paper anymore. There's like a little bit you can see there, but it's like being consumed slowly but surely.
So other uses for paperback books. I like it.
Yeah, alternative marketing. That's what this is.
Nice.
You don't
So you
need
read it and then you can have a mushroom garden. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
All righty. Well, thank you, Adrian, for this. It was a fun hour and 5 minutes, hopefully for you too. And I think we're going to end it here. So everyone wave awkwardly except for Ro, who's frozen.
Hey, look at that.
Hey.